Jerry Franklin, head brewer at Third Wave Brewing Company in Delmar, Delaware, gave a tasting talk about Rauchbier at the 2014 Good Beer Festival at Pemberton Park.
How you guys doing today? Like I said, my name's Jerry. One of the brewers at Third Wave over in Delmar, Delaware. Here to talk about a very old style beer. Up a little closer. That close enough? Okay. All right. So a Rauchbier is one of the oldest style beers you can come across. It was created back in the 1500s, and Rauch basically means in German smoke. And back in the 1500s, there was no way of malting the beer, malting the grains like they do now. So to preserve the grains, they smoked them just like they smoke meats and cheeses, everything for preserving. So you're going to get a nice smoky characteristics out of it. The first smoked beers was created using beechwood, because that was the most common wood that they could get, in Germany. And with beechwood, you get a very oaky taste to it. Another style of a Rauchbier would be peat, and that's also used with the scotch, just drinking regular scotch, and that's going to give almost like a Band-Aid kind of taste to it. The one that I made here is I use cherry wood smoke. I use cherry wood smoke for a very simple reason. It tastes like barbecue, it tastes like bacon. And if you can put bacon in something, it makes it always better. So this here is a very simple, clean recipe. It has the cherry wood smoke. It has some Pilsen malt in it. And to give it the color and a little bit of a nutty flavor to it, is you also have some Kara Munich 60. Basically, the 60 means it's how long it's been, roasted. So the history of it is that it's a beer that kind of went out of style a little bit. I wanted to talk about it today because I love this beer. And I know that a lot of breweries, just like myself, we kind of get very wild with our beers. We want to over-hop, beers, which is great. We want to put fruit in beers, that's great. I like to go classic. And this is a very classic taste. It's something that brings it back to the way it originally was. It's a clean tasting beer. It's something that when some people first try it, they're not, overly, because they taste the bacon or they taste the overly smoked, oats, and they're, not too sure about it. But with pairing with food, this is one of the best beers you can actually have with any kind of, meats that you're having. If you're having barbecue, even pasta, anything. And look, I like my food, and I like taking my food and comparing it with my beer. I'm not going to do one without the other. So, does anyone have any questions about, the Rauchbiers at this point? No? Huh? That is actually a beer that I just created. We're trying to work on where we're going to be selling it. I just made a small batch just to kind of test it out, and you guys are my test subjects. So the alcohol in this one is about 5%. Most Rauch beers are a range from 5 to 6.5%. You'll have some, and originally Rauch beers are lagers. Lagers is for small breweries really kind of hard to do because it takes 6 to 8 weeks for fermentation. This is a Rauch beer that I did in an ale version. It makes it where it's a little bit quicker. No, actually every beer used to be a Rauch beer. This one here is more of a dark Pilsner because I use Pilsen malt in it also. So it's just an ale, like a brown ale. So. This one here was strictly Hallertau. Hallertau is a very traditional German hop. It's going to bring a balance to the beer, because what you're always trying to do with any beer is create a balance. of the hoppiness, the alcohol, and the bitterness. This one here, you want the smoke to really bring through, so you want to keep it a very low bitter. This one here is only, I believe it's 23 IBUs, which scale for beers normally will go from 0 to 100. Most IPAs are going to be in the 60s. Porters can be in like the 20s to 40s. This one here, you're going to go for a little bit lower, so you're looking at about 20. No, actually, with this beer here, I use our house yeast, which is a blend yeast that we use at the brewery. We use it for our porter. We use it for our IPAs and our double IPAs. It's a very neutral yeast. It will basically, eat every sugar that you can want and make it as dry as possible. You really want a Rauchbier to be somewhat dry. That's really falls in the traditional style, especially since most of the Rauchbiers was lagers, and most lagers would be very dry, a nice dry finish. So you want something neutral. The whole idea about this beer, the hops is something to help balance the beer. The yeast is to basically just get the job done nice, smooth, and clean, and you want the smoke to stand out. So the whole idea about this is, with a Rauchbier, from the beginning to the end, you want the smoke, in your nose, in your mouth, and through the whole beer. Yes, it's awesome with pulled pork. And actually, at the brewery, we have a barbecue plate, a barbecue guy that sits out there on Saturdays and Sundays. And I'm so excited next week, because since I made this beer, next week I will have that beer out, and I will be having it with some pulled pork. So thank you. Anyone have any other questions about anything? Yes, sir. You could. The smoke will overtake just about everything. That's what I like. The beauty of the smoke is, just like anything else, it's like a campfire. When you're drinking this, it's like you're talking about it being a campfire, in your glass. And if you try to blend it with a pumpkin, any other spice, the cinnamon, the nutmeg, the pumpkin itself, is all really going to, be underset by the smoke. The smoke will take over everything. And this here is, I only used 3 grains in it. It was a very small batch, and it was an equal amount of each one of those grains. I believe I'm going to push. I am one of the brewers, and on the weekends I do bartending, and I'll be the bartender, so most likely. So I think it's going to be bartender's choice. So please come out and give it a try. Actually, I'm not infusing the beer with smoke. It's the grain itself. Basically, we're taking the grain and you're smoking it just like you would smoke meat, like the barbecue guys over there. And they're taking that meat and they're putting it on a fire, and the fire is basically next to it, and the smoke is coming into that machine and actually smoking it. Same thing. When they smoke the grains, the smoke room was actually, the smokehouse was next to it, and they piped the smoke in. So, because you don't want to cook it, you don't want to put fire on the grain, because if you put fire on the grain, well, it's going to be like a tree, it's going to catch on fire. So you're actually putting it next to it, and you're pumping the smoke into it. By pumping the smoke into it, the whole ideal was to preserve the beer. And just a side note, it, created that smoke flavor that came through. That's how they actually preserved the grain. That's how they malted the grain. So malting the grain is, that's how we do it now. We have a very, classic way. This is the most classic way of malting the grain. Preserving, that's how they preserve fish, meat, all that. There was no refrigeration. So by doing this, it made it where the grain lasted, the winter. and it just happened to give that smoke flavor. That's why I was saying in the beginning, all beers was originally Rauchbiers, because there was no other way of preserving the grain. So you always had that smoke flavor. Huh. No, go ahead. Do I have a name for it? Not yet. Not yet. I'm not. I think I do a decent job brewing the beer. I'm not good with names. Actually, most of the names, and you can, Judd or Doug can contest to that. I have a couple of beers over there for Extreme Brewing that I helped him with, early before I became a professional brewer. And pretty much the easiest way for me to name it is I put my name in the front of it. So, and there's can only be so many beers that's called Jerry. So, yes. Well, you want the smoke to take over. So what you're looking for is the color of this beer came from the Cara Munich. There's a little nuttiness that came from the Cara Munich. The smoke itself, so balance is I use 3 different grains. And this was basically it's a test batch and same size as a homebrew batch. Any of you guys do the homebrew, you normally do about 5 gallons. For this style, we was looking at 4 pounds of cherry wood smoke, 4 pounds of Pilsen malt, and 4 pounds of the Cara Munich 60. And by doing that, you want to do at least a third up to, you can do 80% smoke. Now the original, the lagers, it was all smoke because that's how they had to do it. But by doing that, it's really, our taste buds now versus back then is a little different. If I have done it, I tried it once. I made a 100% smoked, beer using nothing but smoked grain, and I could not handle it. I tried. Yeah, I could not handle it. So, you guys got any other questions or anything? So, well, all I would have to say, I think have I talked enough? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and end this. But one thing I want to say is just give it a try. There's always new beers. Just like Third Wave, just like Evo, Burley Oak, all of us, we come up with new beers all the time. But don't forget about the old beers, because the old beers, the classic beers, they're good. They're a reason why they was created back in the 1500s and 1600s, and they're still good. So give it a try. Don't worry so much about trying the newest and the craziest out there. Give some of the old stuff a try because I really enjoy it. All right, thank you.
Let's give Jerry a big hand. And one of the beers he was talking about, Jerry's Scotch Ale, it is on tap at our tent, Extreme Brewing. And we do have periodic classes at Extreme Brewing talking about grains and how they influence your beer. If you're interested, you can sign up. We have an email sheet to sign up, and we'll let you know what classes are coming up. But thank Jerry for the talk and the beer.
Yep. Drink good beer.
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 Definitely drink good beer.
Drink good beer. Yeah!
The state of the beer is strong.